Here in America, we have two possible futures. We're either going to be poor and enslaved, or we're going to be poor and free. But we are going to be poor. We're going to be materially poor. We're not used to that. Our civilization's in decline. Deindustrialization, cost of living. No matter who's in power, it could be the Democrats, it could be the Republicans, the flavor of the governance changes, but the substance doesn't. Now, if the Democrats were solidly in control, then they would implement, measures to achieve UN's Agenda 2030 and then 2050 for decarbonization, carbon neutral, which is deindustrialization, which means getting off fossil fuels and basically radically reducing energy consumption. Now, you understand energy consumption? Low energy consumption equals poverty. High energy consumption equals wealth. They would push for this by decree. We got to do this in the name of the environment, okay? Now, we can argue all day about the fact that the climate of the Earth changes over eons. And there's fluctuations up and down, there's trends within trends within trends. We can talk about how many ice ages we've had and how many warm periods we had and so on and so forth, right? We can talk about anthropogenic gas emissions or not. But the real reason, all right, that might be a thing, but that's the excuse. It's not the reason. I'll get to the Republicans shortly, so don't think I'm not going to pick on them. Don't think I'm not. I'm totally going to rip them a new butthole. Well, rich people live in a completely separate universe than the rest of us, and they see that there's 8 billion people consuming too many resources that could be theirs. They're looking ahead saying, how are our progeny going to be wealthy if everyone's consuming all the stuff? So they need you poor or dead. Now, when the Republicans are in power, this agenda moves forward, but it's done differently, okay? And the best example, as Ice Age Farmer observed, is through war and misery, through physically destroying the capacity for people to survive, okay? All these wars we had, now Democrats and Republicans waged the war in America, okay? Republicans are just more enthusiastic about it, right? We were giving weapons to Israel to attack the Palestinians, right? And old Joe Biden, like, well, we'll give you weapons, but not 2,000-pound bombs. We'll just give you 1,000-pound bombs. We're very humane. You can't have 2,000-pound bombs. Okay. I'm sure that makes a big difference to the Palestinian whose house is getting blown up by a 1,000-pound bomb and not a 2,000-pound bomb. Wow, they must really be fans of America. Republicans will be happy to give the 2,000-pound bombs. All right, so we're going to war with Iran, and now what? 20% of the Earth, of the planet's oil shipments are cut off. Okay, this is an implementation of, again, the Agenda 2030 and then eventually 2050 decarbonization. Right, just by using war as the reason to take it away. Like, oops, oh, we're going to have to adjust. Oh, I guess we're going to have to adjust. We're going to have to stop people from driving. We're going to have to ration fuel. We're going to have to implement a digital ID system to regulate the rationing of the fuel, and on top of everything else that's coming. Oh, we gotta, this war, we gotta adapt to it, right? It's not, we're all getting together to decarbonize. We're going to fight each other and decarbonize, but it's going to happen either way, okay? Deindustrialize, decarbonize, de-energize. Now, I can't stop this. Okay, this is a controlled demolition of especially America, but Western economies and the world economies in general. So, what do? Well, since it's a controlled demolition, we have to make it uncontrolled. That's my opinion, okay? And this is where we get to whether you're poor and free, or rather poor and sovereign, or you're poor and enslaved. Poverty is inevitable, okay? Living much closer to the land, much lower quality life is coming at us in the next several decades. The modern world is going away. You can't save it. So how do we accelerate the collapse? Well, while the country still runs on human labor, before they have robots deployed to do all the work that we do, we could have a mass strike. We all walk away. Enough of us will walk away, especially infrastructure workers, which means first and foremost, the electrical grid maintenance people. They need to walk off the job in sufficient numbers so that the routine maintenance cannot happen. But also the garbage haulers, the road pavers, sewer workers, water company workers, etc., municipal employees, all that. The people who run the plows, all this, it's got to end. You got to walk off the job. But also people who run the factories, people who run service businesses, all this stuff, okay? We have to walk off the job. We have to never show up again. Like we say, this is it. The civilization's done. Okay, we can't fight the people at the top. Well, hypothetically, you might be able to. But the outcome's the same. The point is to let entropy destroy the system. Okay, the same systems, all right, this way. I'm advocating peacefully allowing these systems to end rather than ending them violently. That's what I'm saying. Okay, and let entropy eat away, let it fall apart, let it collapse. Once the electrical grid fails, people will loot the grocery stores because the just-in-time inventory system will be completely broken. And civilization will reset. There'll be a reset to the biological baseline that people need: food, clothing, shelter, community. And they're going to form tribes, and there's going to be a lot of bad things that happen with that, but a lot of good things too, because we live in a civilization where nobody loves each other anymore. We have no common ethic, no common philosophy, no common religion, no common mythology. Okay, it's just papered over chaos. It's material abundance that's the only thing holding us together. And what do we exist for? What's our national mission? Well, to consume. Oh crap, I'm gonna run this. Shame on me. Hope there's no cop. I misjudged that. Anyways, we need to rediscover these things. And the only way that's going to happen is if we're not running on the modern economic treadmill with all the modern... Okay, we have all this modernity, and we have all these quite pleasant distractions. I'm not saying that they're bad. Okay, it's nothing wrong with comfort, all right? The people say, oh, comfort's doing it to us. No. But we're able to do a lot of things that would otherwise be dysfunctional if we didn't have modern abundance. And so we need to reset and become people who have genuine community, common traditions, common culture, common mission, common philosophy, common mythology, all that, all right? And there's plenty of room, in America. It's so huge that you could have thousands and thousands and thousands of communities, and people can sort themselves out. And, my own town, I've said this before, I've said in previous videos, this is where I'm guilty of kind of repeating myself, even though I make fun of people who constantly rage bait and whatever, post the same stuff over and over. There's like 5 or 6 churches in my town. We could easily have 5 or 6 different communities, at least, in my town. All right, which means if one town can have that many, how many towns are there in America? And multiply it by that. That's the most simple, most conservative math. Okay, we can do this. There's no reason why you can't have ethnic communities again. All right, whatever. Rediscover your mythology, whatever. There's a group of Nordic pagans, family and friends and so on. They have family and friends and connections, like about half an hour from where I live. They're making their own little community. It's not even like planned, like this is what it's going to be. It just is what it is. They have their community. They do what they do. And they'll probably do all right as things fall apart, assuming things fall apart fast enough, right? Because right now the controlled demolition of our civilization is resulting in the gradual implementation of more and more authoritarian measures, right? Less sovereignty, more state control, more corporate control, right? This is an integration of corporations in the states. We call it economic fascism. I don't know why I pulled the detractor supply. I think I want to turn around. So, people will cling to the material things, the abundance, especially the electrified environment, as much as they can, as things get taken away. All right, they'll give up piece by piece their sovereignty, what little remains of it, to have a modern or semi-modern quality of life. Even as their quality of life gets wound down, they'll cling. Right. The plan is a gradual transition. There may be shocks to the system, but just enough to get people to submit without them rebelling. And in my opinion, the way to accelerate it is the peaceful solution to accelerate it is people to walk off these essential infrastructure jobs and against all the walk off all the major places of employment in general, and let it rot and not come back. Now that's very radical, and I don't know how reasonable that is. But if you have a mass, people have to be willing to take a risk. They're gonna have to be willing to risk, while things start winding down, that they can't earn a living, they can't pay the rent, they can't pay their property taxes, and during the fact that the sheriffs are kicking people out of their houses and whatever, right? This is going to require suffering, but you understand this. We're not going to get through this rich. We're not even going to get through it middle class. We're not going to get through it lower class. We're going to get through it poor. We're going to get through it dirt, close to the land poor. Subsistence level poverty. That is where we're headed. Okay, now it's going to be either, again, if it's a controlled demolition, it's going to be subsistence poverty as a slave of a technocratic system, or it's going to be subsistence level poverty of sovereign people, sovereign communities. This is your choice. You can be poor and free, or you can be poor and slave. Right? Once you're willing to accept, eventually you're not going to have air conditioners. You're not going to have oil heat, gas heat. You're not going to have grocery stores and canned food. You're not going to have plastic toothbrushes and silk sheets or soda or anything else that's delightful of this world. Okay, all these these material things, which are fine in themselves, they're neutral, there's nothing wrong with them. We have to let it all go. And if this sounds a lot like anarcho-primitivism, if it sounds a little bit like Uncle Ted, yeah, well, there's some truth to both philosophies. Though I believe there's a essay published online where Uncle Ted was critical of anarcho-primitivism. In any case, it's your choice. All right, this is your life. None of us gets through life alive. Okay, life is a fatal condition we're all afflicted with. It's your soul's journey. And I'm going to say it again. I've said in many other videos. The unions are United Auto Workers are trying to, along with other unions, are trying to time their contract renewal to end on April 30th of 2028, so that May Day becomes a strike day by default. And socialist and communist movements are trying to convince people to pile on with that strike. And I think the strike's a good idea, not because I'm a socialist, not because I'm a communist, but because our civilization is going to destroy us or enslave us if we don't peacefully put an end to it. Now, maybe 2028 is too soon. Maybe this message is going to take years to get out, but it has to get out. Okay, peacefully leaving all the essential infrastructure to fall apart and to stop maintaining it. That'll accelerate the collapse. And it'll take the power away from the people wielding it and all the true believers and whatnot that don't know any better. They're enforcers and whatever, and hangers-on and clingers-on and whatever. That takes the power away from them. If too many people just stop going to work, there's nothing they can do about it. Nothing. And then it ends. So, you decide what you want to do. All right, I'm done repeating myself. Have a good day.